everybody. You're listening to It's All About Food. I'm your host, Karen Hartglass.
Thank you so much for joining me today. It's going to be a celebration, I promise. But before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about my guest today.
John Beske is a longtime veteran of graphic design, advertising, and marketing, with stints at a series of large and small advertising agencies, including Leo Burnett and Della Femina McNamee. During this time, he produced print, television, promotional, and retail advertising and design for dozens of companies, including such famous brands as General Mills, Sony, Popsicle, Miller Brewing, and yes, even McDonald's. Eventually, he became disillusioned with the advertising industry and left the agency scene to become an art director for brands he believed were doing good in the world. Shortly after, he co-founded a visionary marketing agency called Sustain that devoted all of its work to building the messaging of nonprofits in the environmental and social justice sectors, including campaigns for Sierra Club, Earth Justice, and the Rainforest Action Network. During this same time, he teamed up with Marla to create the pioneering website Vegan Street in 1998 and open a Chicago chapter of EarthSave International in 1999. In 2005, he left Sustain to form John Beske Communications, which has been building the brands of vegan and ecologically responsible companies and organizations for more than a decade. John Beske Communications has now been folded into Vegan Street Media. MARLA ROSE is an award-nominated journalist, columnist, public speaker, recipe developer, and author, as well as event planner. Since leaving her job in humane education in 1998, Marla has dedicated her life to building vegan culture and community, and today she writes most of the content for Vegan Street. In 1999, Marla was the founding chairperson of EarthSave Chicago, which hosted dozens of monthly potlucks, each featuring speakers, and produced 5 major day-long vegan conferences called the Conference for Conscious Living, which ultimately evolved into Chicago VeganMania, which was a popular free festival for 10 years. In 2009, she and her partner John Beske were awarded Activists of the Year by Mercy for Animals and won Green America's People and Planet Award in 2015. For the past several years, she has been writing feature stories for magazines and has spoken at the Green Festival, Animal Rights Conference, Vegetarian Summerfest, and many other conferences and festivals. She is a frequent writer for VegNews magazine, a writer of feature stories, and author of several books. Welcome to It's All About Food, John and Marla.
Hey, Karen.
Hi, Karen. Hi. You are two of the most awesomest people on the planet. I resonate with all of your work, and we're going to dive into that. But before we do, can we just take a moment to mention Dr. Karen Davis of United Poultry Concerns, who unfortunately lost her battle with cancer recently, and she is no longer with us, but she has done such tremendous work focusing on birds primarily.
I know. I was thinking of the significance of her passing in November, this month that was a month of huge advocacy for United Poultry Concerns and Karen, and also of massive sorrow, I'm getting teared up already, Karen.
Yeah, I am.
I've met Karen before, and I didn't know her on a personal level, although she did help me with some fact checking for an article I was writing before, and I've met her before at speaking engagements. I loved how fearless she was, how little she regarded the sort of the hierarchies within the animal rights movement of who were the people to worship and who were the people she platformed herself and her message. And I feel like she was maybe the first real voice that took the lives of birds in a serious way. I feel like, I don't know if you feel the same way, Karen, but it seems like our care for animals, even among vegans, kind of goes from the larger animals or this quote unquote more dignified animals whales and dolphins, and then larger animals with big eyes like cows. And she was asking for kindness for these beautiful birds. And I think she was such a powerful and forceful person.
I like to joke sometimes. It's not really a joke, but some people say they're vegetarian, and I say, oh yeah, you eat the feathered vegetable and the scaly vegetable, because we don't consider birds and fish in the same place as we do mammals like cows and pigs, even though we don't treat cows and pigs very well either.
Right, that's for sure.
But some people will say, oh, I don't eat beef, I don't eat pork, but the feathered vegetable is okay. Right. I did have the opportunity to meet with Karen a number of times on a personal level. We would have lunch in New York when she was here. And it's always a wonderful thing to connect with these powerhouses, these amazing activists, fearless, who have done tremendous work, and then just sit with them and have lunch and break bread, as we like to say, and see that, they're soft and gentle and real.
Because of course they are, right? That's what got them into this to begin with. You're absolutely right. Is like every time I've met one of these people, like a Karen Davis or a Carol Adams in person, I shouldn't be, but I'm always taken aback by what huge human, what beautiful animals they are.
Right.
And Karen was just a definition of resilience and resolve. I mean, nobody I've ever known walked her talk like she did. It influenced a lot of my thinking. It's kind of interesting at Vegan Street, our token animal from the very beginning has been the chicken. And true. In fact, a hen, laying hen. So it's that has been, we feel that, they're the most abused animal in the world and someone needs to speak for them. And I mean, Karen did an amazing job. We felt she needed a little help. So we did what we can, and we do what we can to sort of talk about.
You guys remember, I'm sorry, when she was on This American Life years ago with Ira Glass, and this was maybe 20 years ago or more. And I think they thought it was going to be a joke. Like, we're going to go out and meet this kooky old lady or whatever in Virginia with her, or wherever, with her
birds.
And because she was such a smart person. She wasn't, she was a professor. She was like highly educated. And they really honestly thought, this was the days before the internet and prominence of the internet. And they really thought they were going to go out there and make fun of this woman. She got Ira Glass to really think about what he was making fun of with their whole turkey programming. And, wow. And I was so.
I remember that. That was amazing.
Yeah, if anyone gets a chance to look up that old episode, it's really remarkable. And the other thing I was going to say, but it's like back when I was a newbie, like before we even started Vegan Street, I remember reading an article of hers, I believe in a magazine. And I remember her using the phrase rhetoric of apology, that vegans and animal rights people should not use a rhetoric of apology in their advocacy. And by that, she meant like saying, don't worry, it's not going to happen overnight, or, that kind of thing. That just sunk into my bones in such a visceral way that, like, even as a newbie vegan, that was just so deeply absorbed by me. And I just always used that as a guiding light. She was a masterful woman. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Karen Davis, for everything that you have been and done for this planet. We will miss you. Your work will live on.
I've got all the chills.
Now, let's move on to John and Marla, two other amazing activists who've been walking the walk for more than a quarter of a century. We're celebrating 25 years with Vegan Street. Go.
We started as a segue, Karen Davis was one of the people who got me to understand that eggs were not harmless. And, through that, dairy also wasn't harmless, that leather and wool and all those things had victims. So when we started Vegan Street, all those years back, it launched, I believe, October 15th, 1998. John, is that right?
We started Vegan Street. Yeah, .com.
Okay.
We launched the website in 1998.
Right. And we just kind of wanted to create on this, like this was before social media, before things got real messy.
Right.
And there was really this sense of, wow, this vast world out there that, like, we used to leaflet and maybe reach like 30 people in the
Of course. Oh, goodness. So much paper.
So much paper and so few people, like so much so much bang for so little buck. And here was this opportunity to show to the world this community that we were going to will into being, and so that was kind of...
It's a tiny bit of, just a teeny bit of backstory leading up to that. We became vegan together in 1995, February 1st. I remember the day. Marla called me up. She was at work at an animal shelter, and she said, John, we need to be vegan. And I'm going, okay. And that was pretty much how it worked. But we were both, well on that path, and Marla has more to say about that. But the thing that was interesting at the time was that the term vegan and animal rights activists were basically as synonymous as any two words in the English language.
Right.
And that's what there was. There was an animal rights group, and we joined that right away. And then there was this time came up, I think it was 1996, and there was the Great American Meat Out, which was this big thing that was done by the farm.
I think it was farm, yeah.
Yeah. And the way it was celebrated, I don't want to say celebrated, but in Chicago, was that all these animal rights activists would gather at the downtown McDonald's and put their bloody PETA posters up and all that kind of stuff. And we said, I just don't want to do that. It's so reactive. Let's be proactive. Let's try to do something. We decided we wanted to do a vegan action, just Marla and I. And so we built Marla a costume out of, sort of a mortarboard kind of a...
It was like a placard,
placard thing that he was wearing, but it was shaped like a giant burger. And it said Valerie Veggie Burger across the front of it. And we stood about a block away from the regular protesters and handed out recipes and all these and just information. And people, we had enough money to print 200 flyers, and we handed them all out in an hour. And people were loving to see us, and they were stopping and have conversations. And I just thought, you know what? Being vegan is proactive. You're building something. You're creating something. Animal rights is reactive. You're trying to fight these horrible things that are happening. And in order to stop all these things from happening, the best thing to do is to make everybody vegan. So that was kind of our background.
I do think that, we definitely understand the importance of protesting and raising awareness. It's not all like peace and love and cupcakes and vegan cupcakes. But I do want to clarify that when we stood away from other people, it wasn't in disrespect. We love, those are our friends, but we were just doing something different, and we met up with them afterwards. But I remember, in our flyers that we were passing out to people, the Chicago Diner agreed that they would give us, that we could print coupons that were part of the flyer for I think it was a free veggie burger or something like that. And so it was
actually, half price or something like that. But yeah. But they gave us a coupon, and then we also had a recipe because they didn't have them in the stores yet, and so we did a recipe, and then we did, here's the little thing about why being vegan's a good.
But then it became this thing where we were giving people something, so they wanted it, and it just reframed the whole engagement with the people we encountered, and yeah.
Well, your work resonates with me. I agree to be proactive and positive and joyful. And so I've loved everything you've done. I don't know how many people are familiar with your work. They should be. John, you're like the master of memes now. And I have to say, I'm not a fan of memes for many reasons. And that's because we're such a polarized community right now. And a meme is a great way to just draw people to your side without seeing the full picture. We've become such a soundbite, fast information community, and it's devastating. It's going to kill us. But your memes are at the apex of memes because in a small space, it's organized, it's well designed, it's skilled, crafted, and you get the meat of the message. And it's fact. It's not, it shouldn't be polarizing. It's just information.
Right. We've done something like between 1,200 and 15 and 1,300 of these things. So we're coming at it from every single angle. In every case, we try to say sometimes very, very complicated information and put it in the simplest form possible, and having I was an ex-advertising art director, so we had to learn to simplify everything down to the simplest possible way. And then I'm such a lover of great design of any kind. So I try to, epitomize that myself as much as I can. But yeah, we thank you, but we do. And we very carefully source everything. And, we don't just say early on, we made a mistake once and we used information that we got, but it was wrong. And we got just so hammered for that. After that, we become very careful.
The reason why not the reason why, we were probably going to do this anyway, but we revived Vegan Street. So like Vegan Street was operating from 1998 until around 2003, 2004. And then we took this long hiatus where we kind of were working on different things. We kept the URL. Right, raising money, starting festival. But then we brought it back in 2013. And part of the reason why was I was seeing so many bad memes from vegans that were like misinformed or fat shaming or cruel, or just like there's no point to it, or manipulative. And so when I first explained, John, like, I think that we really need to step into this space as Vegan Street and, create, raise the bar for that kind of communication. And whether we like memes or not, I'm a fan of long form articles. I love reading books and stuff like that, but we have to adapt to society and technology, unfortunately, sometimes. But that is how a lot of people are getting their information. So I said to John, I think we need to revive Vegan Street. And when we do, we have to create memes that are credible, that are well designed, and he's like, what's a meme? And so I said, it's an ad, basically, right?
That's right.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah,
right.
It's an ad.
I used to do print ads. I used to do tons of ads for magazines and newspapers, and there was I tried to apply those same standards to the meme, because it's the same thing. It's a shape that has stuff in it, and in a picture and
it is an ad. And I don't think people realize that, because ads are manipulative.
Right.
And so many of the memes we see are there solely to manipulate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, we want to manipulate too, but we're doing it with truth.
I'm a propagandist. I'm not going to.
Right. I mean, one of the decisions we made early on is we are not going to be using images that are we're not shying away from the horrors inflicted on the animals, but we're also not going to there can be this almost like, I'm probably gonna word this incorrectly, but almost like a pornography of blood and trauma, and in some of the images, you know what I'm saying, of like shock value. And we are very aware of the animals who were, and I don't doubt people's intentions behind creating those. They want to open eyes and wake people up. But to me, that is degrading, and we want, and it also makes people shut off their phones and walk away.
Turns people away.
They feel assaulted, and it's like, yes, they need to have their eyes open, but like, that kind of an assault is going to make them hate the messenger, and we don't need that.
Now, Marla, you're a writer, and you have authored many articles on Vegan Street and your blog and on Medium.
Over 1,000.
Over 1,000. And what I love about your writing is you're fearless. Yeah. And you say what you feel, but you do it in a way that's very articulate. So there are many shades of vegan these days. Right. Vegans for health, vegans for the environment, vegans for animals. We have vegans that are abolitionists, and we have welfareist vegans. There are many different kinds. and you comment about a lot of this.
Mhm.
Do you have some favorite ones where you just had to
vent?
just totally vent?
Well, one of the things I wrote early on, I think it's in the book, I don't remember, is when I can't remember the title of it off the top of my head, but I think it's called The Slippery Slope of Nutritional Surveillance. When you're posting your vegan meal and other vegans jump in and say, "Oh, is that I have gluten? Oh, that looks too fattening. Oh, oh, I only eat salad." And the fact is, if somebody's posting first of all, it's none of your business. End of story.
Yeah.
Second of all, it's vegan. STFU. Third of all, it is one meal in a lifetime of meals. The idea that somebody extrapolates from that, it's just such an extremist mindset that I think the internet maybe somehow fosters. I don't know, but it's like you see one picture of somebody's veggie burger and then, oh my God, you eat so much processed. And then if you post salads, then people are like, you're not helping make it more easy. It's like we need to give each other a little more benefit of the doubt. I feel like we have way more in common than we have that's not. As you said, Karen, like there's so many colors, so many varieties of vegans today. It used to be like kind of all one.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
And we knew everyone, but not anymore.
It was easier back then.
Yeah, it's good that we have a big tent, but a big tent means that we have Republican vegans, which is upsetting. We have
non-vegans.
like we have vegans who are apolitical. We have vegan, it's like it is really like the whole gamut. And so I do feel like,
that social media and the internet has its advantages and its disadvantages.
For sure.
We're using it for almost free advertising, although there are platforms that are trying to change that with their algorithms and how they weight how well your message is seen. And if you pay more, you'll be seen more. And that's kind of frustrating now. But there's the dark side too, where it's given everyone this platform either to be a star in their own world or just to say whatever they want. There's no tact, there's no grace, there's no politeness anymore. And I respect people's pages. If somebody has a Facebook page, I'm not going to go shit all over it unless they open it up to questions.
Exactly. Well,
so, like a friend of mine recently said, do you prefer your turkey dry or undercooked? And I said, I want them alive,
Yeah, exactly. No, it's true. It's like, I don't know if I operate the same way. As long as it's not harming others, then I don't care if someone likes raisins and I don't like raisins, like if somebody likes, but like yet if somebody posts a picture of their salad and it's got raisins on it, all of a sudden there's like so I feel like we could all stand, myself included. I check myself about 1 million times a day to like, do we all need to have all these opinions about other people's lives that when they're not harming anyone else, and I do feel like you're absolutely right. There's this polarization and this kind of amplification of separation that happens.
And I think another thing too is that there's this, it's a kind of a fear of missing out where people are seeing these conversations thinking, oh, I should say something. I don't really have anything to say, so maybe I'll just whine about it. And I think that's what it really is for a lot of people. There's this thing where everybody's talking. I need to be part of this. I need to be heard, but I don't really have anything positive to add to this. So maybe I can just mess it up.
I want to bring this back to a celebration of Vegan Street.
Yeah.
Because the work that you're doing is joyful for the most part, not talking about a subject that's very, very difficult. Mm-hmm. And you're offering art and craft, wonderful recipes, great stories, and memes that we can resonate with and share. Mm-hmm. And I support that. And we're living in a very difficult society. And I think social media, especially, maybe people are bored. Maybe people are afraid. And this is their like release, or they're out. And you and I, we have to have thick skins when it comes to all of that, right? Because you can't take in all of these insults and the bullying. You have to, as Michelle would say, go high.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think like I have theories about it, but I think like what it is people are seeking connection desperately, whether they identify it as connection or not, it's just like, I want to be heard. I want community. And they're like, for better or for worse. And I think for the most part, it's for better. Most of us don't have to live with our family of origin like we did for, thousands of years. But that also means we don't have the best parts of that. We don't have a built-in support structure. Like, granted, again, many of us, myself included, came from families that I was eager to distance myself from. But I do think we still seek community. We still seek safety. We still seek to be heard and to intimacy, and sometimes it comes off in these various different ways. But like, to your point, Karen, I was just going to say, like, the other day, I don't know why or how this happened, but a post of mine went really cuckoo. Like, it wasn't a vegan post, but it was like a progressive post against Moms for Liberty. Is that what it's called? Anyway, the ones who are like taking all the books out of schools. So anyway, somehow or another, it just got widely seen and shared, and it was just a picture I'd shared with a like 3-letter caption to it. Yup. Anyway, I decided, just out of curiosity, I'm going to open my privacy settings so that anyone can comment. I usually have it.
Okay. Yeah.
Karen just grimaced, but cringe grimace. But so I just had an experiment just to see what happened. There were a lot of supportive people, a lot of great people. I got called a groomer like 100 times at least. It was just like, you do need to. And I immediately the next day closed my settings back up.
There's some scary people out there.
Yeah. But yeah, they are scary. Yeah.
There are scary people out there, but some of them aren't even real.
Yeah.
I know, absolutely. That's the thing. It's probably just a bunch of Russian bots, whatever. Who knows?
Yes.
But that's the thing about being a vegan, is that all these people are sort of, well, now I'm being canceled. I mean, blah, blah, blah. Well, we're canceled from day one.
We canceled ourselves.
we canceled ourselves. We've been canceled by everybody. We've been called every name in the book. And so you learn to kind of live with that and even sort of love it. You
do develop it. And I think that, Karen, to your point, I think that is an aspect of old school vegans, and that's maybe part of why I'm so partial to old school vegans, is we all did kind of go through this period of being disliked by our coworkers, being estranged from our families and friends, perhaps, if of ordering quote unquote weird food at restaurants. it makes you develop a real thicker skin about things that matter and things that don't. And the people who matter to you will make room for you in your life if you're not doing anything to harm others. If you're just being vegan in the world. We all went through an obnoxious phase as vegans. Mine lasted for a couple years.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
absolutely.
But I think as long as I think it's a good thing to keep your channels open as much as you can, as long as people are being respectful,
So I want to talk about not only all the great work you've done, but where you see yourself going from now to into the future. Things are continually changing. We're always looking for how can we get our message out more effectively? And I think it's a challenging message, what we have, but it's extra challenging because you're going about it presenting this message with light and joy. And what seems to appeal to a lot of people is sensational stuff.
Right. Because as a social
media appeals
aspect,
to the media, and in the social media,
aspect.
The more obnoxious you are, the more likely it's going to be
more engagement. It is really,
you try to do something positive.
Mm-hmm.
And so
exactly that, and you disappear. That's why people go down that road, is like you disappear if your posts aren't inflammatory enough, and like I think that like if you build an audience that does expect you to be more nuanced and friendly and welcoming, then you're fine. And I've tried to do that, but I don't feel like I need to stoop to like dramatics, but yeah, that is the challenge, is like, we're all, it sounds arrogant, and I don't mean for it to, or selfish. We're all trying to be seen. We're all trying to get this work out there in the world, because we know that all these different ways that we can communicate reach different people in different significant ways. It's like Vegan Street's messaging may not be the cup of tea for somebody else out there, but MFAs might, or this person, UPCs might, and so we're all struggling to find ways to be heard, quite honestly.
And I mean, one of the things that we've done, because we produce so much work, we've produced thousands of things and put, the essays and the recipes and the memes and the vegan living tips and all that kind of stuff. We've done so much of that we've come at it from every possible angle that we can imagine. And we both have pretty good imaginations. So, but back to your original question, what's going on for the future is
that was the original question.
As we've kind of touched on, the social media algorithms are not working anymore. And
it's not going to change.
And that's not going to change. It's going to probably get worse, if anything. And so what we're trying really hard to do is we're kind of rethinking veganstreet.com, which it always kind of was, as a sort of an inspiration, education, building enthusiasm kind of a site, which is more of like a static thing to give vegans and vegan curious people a place to go to
it's like resources
and enlightened and all that. So now, actually, we've been working on this for almost 2 years, and it's such a hurdle, but we're building a new, completely different site called Root Riot.
And we're keeping Vegan Street alive. Yeah, sorry.
And it's all based on building community. And we're going to be using like old-fashioned message boards. We're going to be using Zoom calls. We're going to be using all these ways. And the idea is to get activists and others to just connect with each other. It's a lot of networking. It's going to be a lot of classes. You can study, you can get a chef demo. You can get that we'll be having someone giving lectures about this and that. And, part of it's going to be free, part of it's going to be paid for, but everybody's going to have a voice. And
not everybody.
Oh, not every. Okay, so yes, we decided. Sorry, that's true.
I beg to differ.
Trolls won't have a voice.
Exactly.
In fact, I can't wait to draw the logo for this, but a troll-free zone.
No trolling. Yeah.
No troll. No troll.
Exactly. I mean, like I could imagine a listener hearing this and going like, okay, that sounds great, but like, what makes it different from like, it'll be great for a couple months and then all the mean people will show up and start shaming people and trolls will start baiting us and all. I think the best Facebook groups are the ones that are where the admins have a heavy hand in making sure that there's not provocation, there's not people being mean to each other, there's not hate speech, certainly, and we prioritize a community that is welcoming and progressive over a free speech zone. If you want that, create something else. We're not a place where people can spread disinformation, where people can spread bigotry or anything like that. It is, we're still figuring out the mechanics of exactly how that would work. And we don't want it to become this like little bubble, but we also feel like, and remember the old days of, when you just started connecting, like we just kind of want to bring back the best of the internet.
Yeah, I'm remembering some 20 plus years ago, the forums that we used to have on a variety of websites that were promoting specific things. And then Facebook took it over. And it's very nice that Facebook is there and has all these different groups, but it's run by a corporation that does things we don't believe in or support. So now we can take advantage of all the extra new bells and whistles in technology and bring it back to where we want it to be. I like that. These community forums.
Right.
I mean, the problem is that we're, I'm an artist, she's a writer, and neither one of us are real computer programmers or that kind of stuff. So we're kind of having to go way outside of our comfort zone to do this. I think it's necessary. I think it has to happen. And there's a time where you find that you suddenly realize you're in a place you can do something about it. And then you can't not do that. You have to do it.
That's always been
a little bit of an aside because it's just an idea that Marla had like a week ago and it exploded. But Marla had this idea, okay, so we run a little pantry out in front of our house. It's a little free pantry. It's called a little free plant-powered pantry. We give away about $200 or $300 worth of food every month, and we have a little community of people who are helping us do that. We're paying some of it ourselves, but we're getting community help us out. Marla just had this idea, like right before Halloween. She said, "Why don't we give away a bunch of free Thanksgiving dinners to people?" Well, I mean, anybody else suggesting that it would be absurd, but we're like, wait a minute, we have what we need to be able to do this. And Marla was able to connect with the local chef who was willing to build all these. We realized we just have to, $1,100 or something to pull this off, and it would be 20 dinners for 20 different families. And I'm going to let Marla talk a little bit.
Yeah, more. It's just like 80 people will get. And I know from just our experience with the little free plant-powered pantry that there is a lot of hunger. I mean, it's like we live in the suburbs, but there's some affluence and there's some that's not. But I think people at the beginning were like, "Why are you putting a pantry in a suburb?" We're an inner ring suburb. Yeah, exactly. But like.
I'm shrugging my shoulders here. Oh, why? Yeah. Like people aren't hungry in the suburbs.
There are hungry people, and there are really grateful people who, and I would say we probably distribute more. Not that I'm keeping count on it, but people donate to the GoFundMe for the little free pantry, and then we go to Aldi and we get pasta, we get veggie chili. Now I can start getting potatoes and stuff,
Just cool off and we can put them out there.
Right. Milk, shelf stable milks and stuff like that. So anyway, the idea is like that I've always wanted to work in some capacity in a nonprofit way with getting vegan food to people, not just symbolically through like recipes or whatever, but literally. And so this is, the Thanksgiving is just the natural extension of it. It's like this woman came to me because she wanted to build a box in her yard, and she lives one town over. Her name is Kiana Carswell, and she has a business called Chicago Style Vegan. Anyway, she reached out to me about that, and I was in the midst of like trying to figure out how am I going to reach out to all. I was thinking originally like reach out to all these companies and get coupons for their cheeses and their roasts and stuff.
Right.
And it was just becoming like they're all so overwhelmed and everyone's struggling right now. So I just reached out to got back to Kiana and I was just like, what do you think about this idea? And she's like, so we just started she put together 3 sample menus. And so anyway, we just put up the box for people to sign up for it yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, we put up a big poster in our front yard, and and some little boxes with full of forms in the box to put the forms into, and a big inflatable turkey to sort of draw attention to the whole thing. And we just did this yesterday, got it up in the early afternoon, and by the end of the day, we have 4 people to
4 requests already for families. And so we're
Wow.
On a Sunday.
Yeah, on a Sunday. Yeah. I think, obviously we're going to keep the pantry continuing that work while we're doing this other stuff. But it just feels exactly right. You know what I mean, Karen? I know you know what I mean.
I think it's a wonderful thing. And you had this idea and you had to do it. So many people need help.
Yeah.
I do want to include a caveat here that it depends on where you live, but there are places where you cannot give out free food. There are places where you cannot give people meals. It's crazy. It's insane, but just where you are, make sure you know what's allowed.
One of the first things we did was get our alderman involved.
Well, the first thing I did was like reach out to the alderman, make clear in my email, this is not food that is going to go bad. These are all shelf-stable items,
Right.
And also, and he was really into it because it's something for him to brag about in his ward, But the other thing is that Kiana, she has a catering license, she has an inspected kitchen, all that stuff. So yeah. That's really, really
these are details that are
and it's important. Also, we're not just handing this out. I mean, we're not just putting these baskets in the pantry.
Right.
This is going to be dealt with where we're going to either deliver it to these people or they're going to come to our house and we'll have it in the house and giving it to them.
Right. The day before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. I remember years ago, I had a lemonade stand with my son and we got shut down.
Right. Insane. Yeah.
Right. It was just like, do you have a license? But it's like a 5-year-old kid with his lemonade stand.
Yeah.
He was so heartbroken.
Yeah.
I don't think he really understood what was going on.
But yeah, I think that, if there's anything that John and I have done, I think that you're the same way, Karen, is we just kind of follow where our hearts lead. It is, and this is the next thing, and this is the next thing, and it's not in a flaky kind of flighty way, but like, this interests me, And
I think I remember, John, you telling me this when we spoke last week, I think, about how you want to save the world. I think it's a beautiful thing, and we all, many of us activists come with that sort of motivation, but we really have to frame it for our own sanity and well-being, to do what we are motivated as individuals to do, to bring our skills and our talents forward and to participate in this great challenge that we have, but we can't do everything.
No, I mean, It really is. It's being a vegan is, to quote a overdone song, is to dream the impossible dream. You can't you can't possibly do what we're hoping. In fact, back to the whole thing that we started at, when we started, I didn't think we'd be this far along by now. I mean, I think
with the vegan world,
food in all of the stores, and people talk about us differently.
Right.
I mean, everything was derision. And now it's, it's not a bad idea. It's fine for you. You can do that. And,
there's a lot of people who are curious.
And that's like, a lot of people will just say, oh, I've really cut down on my meat intake. And, I really enjoy putting, veggie burgers on the grill. And
I get that the most. It's kind of like a guilty apology. Like I'm doing a lot better.
But 20 years ago, you couldn't have imagined that.
No.
But that's part of the whole aspect of, I don't even remember where I was going with that. But my point is, I'm already thinking about the fact that we will probably, I know what it was. Real quick. That's part of why we want to create Root Riot, is for people who are genuinely curious, and will be able to discern that through how they're communicating with us, and have them have a space that's not filled with angry vegans who are going to chastise them, or trolls who are going to be like, why would you want to do that? But and
we can be building little brain trusts and little groups of people together who will be able to say, hey, I'm in Sacramento, are you in Sacramento? Let's do this.
I mean, I know that we're idealistic, but we're also pragmatists. We kind of in that middle area. We know that it's not going to be all hunky-dory just because it's something different. But I do think that if you're mindful of what can go wrong and just really intentional about what you want to create, you can do that. But the other point I was going to make is I can already sense with the pantry and with the Thanksgiving that there's going to be way more demand than we can fill. And I'm already feeling bad about the drop in the bucket aspect of it. And I think that that's part of what vegans deal with every day, is maybe you got somebody to consider not having meat at every meal, but that's just a drop in the bucket, But
it takes a lot of drops to fill the bucket, and you're participating with a few drops.
But if you don't add your drops,
here's a few things that I like about where you're going with all of this. Number one, there have been reports talking about charitable giving and what people donate to. And unfortunately, a lot of the smaller grassroots organizations are not getting the contributions that they used to. I'm not sure how it's working with Patreon. It's the bigger groups that have algorithms and statistics that show how well they're doing and how they're using your money. When it comes to veganism, some of these big groups that are doing very well, I'm not in line with, because they're more welfare related. They're not abolitionist related. They're moving very slowly with bigger cages rather than no cages, these metaphors and just reality. But they're the ones that are getting a lot of the funding, and the ones that have more funding are able to hire more people to get out there more and enhance the algorithm so that they get more attention. Okay. And then another small piece of that is the investment community that is investing in these highly processed, crazy, almost frankenfoods that are vegan. And, we have plenty of evidence now that it's not going to keep people from eating animals.
I think
which is supposed to be the motivation, but at the same time, I'm still in this same thought here. When at the same time, with the internet and the pandemic helped with this, unfortunately, is we are getting so far away from communities and far away from connection.
Yes.
So all of these things are playing together.
Yes.
And what I like about what you're doing is you're kind of finding a way to bring back community, bring back the grassroots, because the change comes from the grassroots.
Absolutely.
And maybe bring it back a little bit to the way it used to be, but
in, what you call it 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 in a new way for the 21st century.
Absolutely.
Did I make sense there?
I mean, that is beautifully said. And I think that like the point is we're not trying to pretend that social media doesn't exist. We're not trying to say, that newer technologies don't exist or anything like that. We're not trying to, bury our heads in the sand. What we are trying to do is just create a more beautiful space on the internet. And we believe that it is in person and virtual, that they both can complement each other. I can't see my family in Texas all that often, but I can Zoom with them. But just because it's tech, it doesn't mean we are not connecting and we're not better for having connected in that way. So like we see the pitfalls of technology. It's not going to solve everything, but it is a complement to, engagement, to community, to finding friends. Honestly, some of my best friends are people I met online, and
yes.
Yeah. So
I've met people across the oceans that I've never met in person, and I adore them. Yeah,
exactly. And they're genuine friends. Like the first time I experienced that with Vegan Street in its original 1.0 form was like this teenage boy in where was he from, John? It was like Uruguay. Yeah, Uruguay. Yeah, sorry. I was combining two countries there. Uruguay was messaging me and he was like, I'm vegan. I'm like the only vegan around me. And we touch base like a few times a month, maybe twice a month. I don't know whatever happened with him. I hope he's great, but bring back that sense of magic of connection. We don't all have to be cynical and hating each other and ready to like character assassinate. We can.
Okay. We're getting close to the end of this program, believe it or not, and we could talk for hours, and maybe we should bring this back another time and continue. But I have one more thing I want to say, and then I want to open it up to John, who I want to hear a little bit more from. Well, here's one of the things I want to say. I don't know, Marla, if you've written about this or if you've memed about this, John. Right now, the world feels very dark. And I know that we've had wars and we've had violence throughout human history, but now it especially feels closer to home somehow. And I keep thinking, when I see all this insanity on social media and people taking sides, I keep thinking, what about the violence in your own life? We can't control so much of what's outside, but we can control what's in our home. And so many people, 3 meals a day include so much violence. And I don't know how to get that across, but I think we would be a lot less violent society if we weren't taking advantage of the non-human animals that we slaughter all the time for our moment of gratification.
And I mean, this is something that we have tried to address from every different angle, from everything from, zoonotic diseases causing pandemics to, all the violence in the environment that's caused by animal agriculture. And we have, one thing we do have our favorite villain, which is the animal agriculture industry. One of the things that we try to say as much as we can is that we're not absolutists about it, but we'll just say, if you can just start moving, you're supporting this horrible industry every time you eat meat. So if you should move it to the side of your plate, or reduce it or eliminate it if you can, but there's a way through this. But it is, and that's things, you can take climate change, which is based a large part on animal agriculture, and you could say that's what literally caused the whole civil war in Syria that's led to so much trouble, because it changed their growing season and destroyed their grain crops, so that grain crops to feed not people, feed animals. And that's where all this stuff is into.
Can I interrupt with just a second?
Yes. But all I'm saying is that we just try to do this from every single animal and every single angle that we can think of. I
just want to clarify, we don't ever, I don't think, say reduce meat. We will share news stories about, and we'll share statistics about what would happen if people reduce their consumption. But we're not I think it goes against our principles to even maybe John disagrees, but like
I'm not saying do this. I would say that. I'm saying that if we did this, it would have that effect.
Right. And we report on that. And we definitely, we want people to know that if we can empower people through knowledge, through recipes, through access, rather than kick them out of the club for not knowing everything instantly, that would be a lot better for all of us. I think the animals would want us to be as effective as possible and as quickly as possible, not like finger point and, just get into every little difference that we have. We've got to get serious about it, and being as pragmatic as we can while holding true to our principles and our messaging. And, I think you do that so beautifully, Karen.
Thank you. Okay, we've got just not much time left, but what about this book you've put out celebrating your 25 years of Vegan Street? Can people get access to that?
Yes. First, a quick description of the book. It is a 136-page ebook, which seems very like we're really trying to trumpet ourselves more than we need to. But what we're doing is we put our 25 best loved memes, our 25 best loved recipes, and our 25 best loved essays. And in the cases of the memes are all self-contained, and we have little explanations under each one. The recipes, normally if you go to click on a recipe, you have to click on the recipe to get it, but these are in the book with that. So there's a little mini recipe book in the cookbook in there. And then we have 25 of Marla's our essays in full.
So John,
I'm not murdering anymore.
How can people get this book?
Okay, so that's what I was going to get to is that right now we have a Patreon page, and if
you just go to Patreon
for Vegan Street, patreon.com/Vegan Street. Anybody who joins us on our Patreon at any level will get this book for free. So, and I think it's something the book itself, we put a whole lot of time and effort into it.
And also the knowledge that you're helping to support, just a couple of people who have produced, thousands of pieces of work, in our spare time, between paying jobs. And that I think, and I'm sure you understand, Karen, like if you're good at something, people don't necessarily realize how much work it took. They might think that it just pours out of you. I do want people to understand that creators, creatives, whatever, people doing podcasts, it takes work. It takes a lot of it takes research, it takes planning, it takes time out of paying jobs, it takes all these things. And like when I create a recipe, for example, I have to, buy the ingredients. If it doesn't work the first time, I have to try it again, blah, blah, blah. These things cost money and we need to value that, Karen?
Amen. Yeah, we do. But that's not the way our society and capitalism works, or it doesn't work that way very well. But we persist.
We persist. Yet she persisted.
All right. Well, John and Marla, John Beske and Marla Rose, two awesome people, creators of Vegan Street and the soon to be enjoyed Root Riot. Thank you. Thank you for joining me on It's All About Food. Thank you for all that you do.
We love you,
Karen.
That's what it's all about. Love. We're all about love.
Yes.
And love is the only answer.
We've got it all solved.
We've got it all solved. Exactly. All right, everybody, have a delicious week.